I don't know about you, but I've about had it up to here with sedans that think they're SUVs and hatchbacks that think they're SUVs. But when it comes to the mini SUV formula, I think this one probably comes the closest. This is the Tata Punch, and it's not just a hatchback size car that's been styled to look like an SUV. Tata's actually gone the distance and given it a couple of mechanical differences that could bring it closer to the SUV experience. But that's what we're going to find out today.
In case you were wondering, the Punch is Tata's attempt to bridge the gap between entry-level hatchbacks merely styled like SUVs and entry-level crossovers that have more space, features and capabilities to an extent. The former includes the Renault Kwid, Maruti Suzuki Espresso and Mahindra KUV 100, and the latter stretches across one of the hottest segments in India, from the Nissan Magnite, Renault Kiger, Hyundai Venue, Kia Sonet to the Punch's elder brother, the Nexon. This micro SUV segment between the two segments is actually set to grow rapidly. The Punch lands the first, blow, and the upcoming Citroën C3 will be another one to look out for before the Hyundai Casper gets here. And while the Punch is front-wheel drive only, it's reasonably light and has impressive ground clearance. It also uses a clever Ram intake system to increase low-end torque, and the AMT version is equipped with electronics that could potentially help you get out of slippery situations. With that out of the way, do you think the Punch looks SUV enough? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, please do like, share and subscribe to the OVERDRIVE channel for more such thought-provoking questions. Anyway, given that its dimensions lie between the two segments, the Punch does look larger than its size would suggest, and on these 16-inch alloy wheels coupled with a very large glasshouse, it actually looks superbly proportional, unlike some crossovers that can appear top-heavy. There's a lot of angular, sharp surfacing and well-executed plastic cladding to break up the visual bulk here, and it works very well with elements like Tata's tri-arrow motifs for an overall cohesive design. The rear door handles hidden in the C-pillar actually do somewhat give the Punch a 3-door look, which works in its favor. There's no denying the Safari, Harrier, Nexon connect, and that'll likely be the Punch's greatest selling point.
Now, the first thing that you realize when you climb into the Punch is just how upmarket this cabin feels. A lot of effort has gone into the various textures and the quality of plastics and just how solid everything feels. And it shows. There's this 3D printed texture here, there's another rib texture here which will definitely pick up dirt, but it feels very cool and it looks very cool. It's a similar texture that's down here. And everything just feels very solid and well put together, including things like the roofliner. I have to keep reminding myself that this is potentially the car that will sit at the most affordable side of Tata's lineup.
Things like the leather-wrapped, flat-bottom steering wheel definitely help, and the only thing that feels outwardly cheap is the button on the single map light up in front.
In terms of ergonomics, Tata has got the driving position pretty much spot on, with the exception of the fact that the pedals feel a little out of sync with the steering wheel. But even with the seat set at its lowest position, this does have driver's seat height adjust. I can still see the edges of the bonnet, and that makes piloting the Punch very, very confidence-inspiring.
The seats are well bolstered too and offer just the right amount of under-thigh support.
It's not just that. The cabin is a very usable place too. There's a lot of storage down here. There is storage over here, twin cup holders. The door pockets, even though they won't hold a full 1 liter bottle, do have separate compartments to help you segregate your stuff. And the glove box is cool. Also, the Punch gets auto headlamps, auto wipers, cruise control, and a lot of this can be actually optioned with a different variant of car through packs.
For example, the 7-inch touchscreen infotainment with smartphone integration and reverse camera can be optioned on the mid-spec adventure variant with a rhythm pack. It's a great way to give you a choice without forcing you to upgrade to the next variant in the lineup, though pricing remains to be seen. We do wish more USB charge points was an option too.
Now, apart from the fact that you'll have to remind your rear passengers that the door handles aren't on the side of the door and tucked away in the C-pillar, the rear seat experience in the Punch is actually quite surprising. There's a good amount of under-thigh support. The squab is quite wide. The adjustable seat headrests do definitely come in handy, though headroom is a little tight for me and I'm 5'11". Though your knee room is more than sufficient. Fitting 3 people in here will be a little bit of an ask, but then again, just consider the class of car. You don't get rear AC vents, but you do get storage, and there's no charging point back here. But then again, it's the quality of materials like this that actually uplifts it just a bit.
Under its SUV skin, the Punch rides on the Alpha Arc platform and is essentially an Altroz, which means it has the advantage of width on its side, though it rides on a 56mm shorter wheelbase, a similar difference to the larger Nexon. Interior space is comparable to the Altroz though, and it actually offers better headroom considering the extra height. The Punch even has better boot capacity at 366 litres over the 345 litres of the Altroz, and it even betters the 350 litres of the Nexon. The seats fold but not in a 60-40 split. On the safety front, standard are 2 airbags, ABS, EBD, while dynamic cornering lamps, auto headlamps, wipers and reverse camera are offered on top variants along with IRA connected tech. The Altroz on the same platform is a G NCAP 5-star rated car, so the Punch will likely do similarly well.
The 1.2-litre 3-cylinder petrol that's in the Punch, it's a familiar Tata engine. We've driven it in other cars, but in the Punch, Tata's actually worked on the air intake system with something that they call Dyna Pro. It's essentially a ram air system, and it runs the tubing right at the front of the car to draw in the coolest air possible instead of drawing air from within the engine bay itself, which will be hotter and actually leads to not the best performance. So Tata claimed that the Dyna Pro aids in a little bit of low-end torque.
It's available with a 5-speed manual or AMT with ratios identical to the Altroz, though a slightly tweaked final drive is set to improve drivability. Tata says the turbocharged 1.2 is in consideration, but we're more excited for an electric drivetrain. We know this platform is ready to go full EV, so bring it on, Tata. The Punch is about 35 kg lighter than a comparable Altroz and about 65 kg heavier than a Tiago, though those cars don't have the updated air intake.
As an extension of that, it does feel a little more lively than it does in the Altroz and maybe the Tiago. Now the Punch will make for a good city car even in this 5-speed manual transmission variant, just because the clutch is so light and easy to use, and the gear shifts actually feel more positive than we have experienced in other Tata cars with this same gearbox. Driving it in the city, you will find yourself at about 2000 RPM to keep up with traffic, and you'll rarely feel the need to climb above 2500 RPM even if you want to keep ahead of traffic. The good thing is that the NVH characteristics seem well enough sorted that you don't really hear the engine till you're crossing about 3500 RPM. The one thing that the Punch does very well is managing its gear ratios. You don't feel like you're constantly needing to shift between 3rd or 4th when you're driving around in the city. For example, I'm in 4th right now at about 2300 RPM and I'm doing 70 kilometers per hour, and the engine doesn't feel stressed at all. Under regular driving conditions, you will find that there's more than enough, I hate to say it, but punch for everything that you want to do. Be it the 0 to 100 or the roll-on or even the braking figures, the Punch is definitely a very laid-back performer, but it doesn't feel like it when you're driving regularly, and I think that's the distinction that needs to be made.
The AMT has better in-gear acceleration figures, even considering that the downshifts are slow, as it keeps the drivetrain in a lower gear. Performance is of course very similar to the Altroz and Tiago, and similarly underwhelming, truth be told. Perhaps a sport drive mode would have helped where outright performance is required, though we're sure most customers would be happy with the payoffs at the fuel pump. In our limited time with the car, we were able to do a very quick fuel efficiency test under regular city driving conditions, and the 18 plus kmpl figure we achieved is commendable considering the auto start-stop didn't kick in at all during our drive.
Now the ride quality of the Punch is another thing worth talking about, because it's not as plain as Tata cars typically are, it does feel a little stiffer. Perhaps it's to suit the whole SUV persona that Tata is trying to go with the Punch. So on good roads, that means you've got a great sense of confidence. On bad roads, at slightly higher speeds, that means that you can drive over it and the car doesn't get upset. But at city speeds, when you go over a bad patch, you do feel it. I do feel like the Punch could have done with a little more compliance, because when you go over cracks in the road like that, you definitely feel it.
The flip side is that body roll is very well controlled and the steering weight and feel is spot on for a car of this size, giving you a lot of confidence even at highway speeds. As for the confidence to take it off-road, the Punch's 190mm ground clearance and impressively short overhangs make sure it doesn't ground out or touch anywhere, and the 370mm of water wading capability is a plus too. The AMT's Traction Pro mode could potentially help you out of a sticky situation by braking the spinning wheel and sending power to the wheel that has traction, sort of like a brake torque vectoring, but it's only when you use the brake pedal manually. Overall, the micro SUV segment could seem very counterintuitive, but the Tata Punch seems to package all the ingredients exceedingly well with very little to complain about. Of course, that's except for the laid-back outright performance and lack of multiple USB charge points. Otherwise, it's well-spec'd and well-made and ought to sell well if Tata gets the price right.